Hey everybody, here we are with a WZ-120 replay. This one is from Desuwa. Now, he's just got this tank. Well, actually, at the time he recorded this replay, he had just got this tank. He's had it for a while now. And this game is a very good demonstration of all things WZ-120. Now, he's ended up as top tier in a match that's largely composed of mediums and light tanks, which is interesting matchmaking. I'd be very happy to see this kind of match in my WZ-120. I would just probably be happier to see a flatter map. Now, right away, Desuwa turns to head through the east side of the map, rather than what I usually do from this spawn, which is to push straight into the middle and work my way up from there. Looks like he's going to have some support going that way. And the enemy team are already pushing lights down. Now, there are quite a few light tanks in this match. Quite a lot, actually. And so there's a decently target-rich environment down in that area. In the middle, normally you have to wait a minute for the enemy mediums to come through. Desuwa looks for shots here, but the 54's in cover. And gun depression. He has to move down to the left, so he's on a downhill incline to get a shot at the T-37. Unfortunately, he just whiffs it. I don't think he's fully aimed there, and that's why. The WZ-120 really punishes you if you snapshot. If you actually wait for the aim to settle, the gun's accuracy is not as bad as it looks on paper. And because of its decent pen and high alpha, the gun actually snipes fairly decently out to mid-range. Now with the shot on the KV-4, again, Desuwa takes a shot before he's fully aimed, and it finds the one part of the KV-4 it can actually bounce off of. He is facing lower tier tanks here, but there are a lot of them, and he is on a slope, which is the last place you want to be fighting in a WZ-120. It just does not have the gun depression to handle it. As you can see, driving over that rubble pile actually made his gun buck up into the air. You have to really know what you're doing with regards to terrain in this tank. You cannot afford to hit a bump at the wrong time. On the other hand, you can certainly use those bumps when you need to. Gets a shot into the 3002D there. That's a very low roll for a WZ-120. Usually it's in the mid 400s. And the IS-3 gets a shot in. Desuwa's lost a fair bit of health already, but he still has the ace of a big gun up his sleeve. Unfortunately for now, the RNG is not working in his favour, and he just really isn't in the best terrain for his tank. The IS-3 pulls back into cover, and the KV-4 and T-29 are beginning to flank around. Now, this should be fine, but Desuwa's teammates don't appear interested in engaging the tanks that are about to push on him. He looks for a shot here on the T-44. Unfortunately, it stops and reverses right as his shell arrives, and so it wings off its front plate. If that had actually hit the T-44, there's a good chance it would have racked him. T-44s are allergic to WZ-120s. He instead puts a decent shot into the Roomba, which is backing off as any intelligent person would after being hit by a WZ-120. Well, I say that, actually it could have hit him while he was reloading, but we won't talk about that. He's getting pushed on pretty hard here by the T-29 and the KV-4. Now, his armor can kind of handle them for now, but instead of standing around and putting that theory to the test, Desuwa simply bails off the fucking escarpment and runs along here looking for a new angle to engage from while these guys sit with their dicks in their hands. And it actually turns out to be very effective. He's pulled a bit of the old switcheroo on these guys, and they aren't quite sure what's going on. They don't know which way to aim. And the people who are pushing on him are now being pushed on by him. Gets a good shot in the T-29 there, who really doesn't appear to know what's going on, and gets finished off by the friendly T-49. VK loses a perfect average roll's worth of health, 440 being the average damage of this gun. Nice high roll there on the IS-3. Unfortunately, he gets a shot into Desuwa, but it is a low roll, and Desuwa's next shot puts some serious hurt on the IS-3 and tracks him. Now, this terrain isn't the best for Desuwa. As you can see, he's fighting on an incline where his gun is not going to want to depress. However, he managed to find a nice little spot there where he can get it down enough to finish the IS-3 off. It's all about knowing those spots when you play this tank. Slight low roll there into the VK, and Desuwa decides he's outstayed his welcome and begins to move through the center of the map to try and curb the enemy push on the friendly cap, which is mostly light tanks, mostly easy targets for this thing to deal with. Unfortunately, that shot looks like it went into a building. The Bulldog does realize he's getting pushed just in time to get a shot off, but not in time to save himself. Now the 1390, if it gets a penning shot in or manages to track Desuwa, will kill him. However, he's able to finish it before it can get a shot off. As you can see, the gun was bucking pretty wildly there. He was really pushing his luck for gun depression. And from what he's been saying to me on Steam when he first got this tank and first started playing it, the gun depression is his biggest issue with it, as it is with a lot of people. If you aren't used to exploiting the terrain for gun depression, you're going to have a difficult time in the WZ-120. It does become easy once you play it enough times, you sort of adapt to it. And if you tend to play tanks with really good gun depression, it doesn't sound like it would be a skill that transfers well, but it is, because knowing the really hilly spots to use for good gun depression and knowing the really hilly spots to avoid with shit gun depression are kind of similar. And the Wheezy, you almost end up doing the inverse. So with my Centurion, I look for a good hill with a really good steep slope I can use to angle my hull back. With the Wheezy, I look for the same thing, but to angle my hull forward. The enemy Wheezy gets bottled up behind a rock. He's dealing with the Comet there, which he should easily be able to dunk on. Desuwa looks for a chance at the Patton, but the terrain just isn't going to let him do it. He wouldn't have had a shot there because of his gun depression. He looks for the trick shot here on the WZ-120, and it actually goes in. Full health Patton is the last enemy standing. It's pretty securely a win. The 132 and KV4 are happy to sit on cap and finish the game that way. Desuwa gets a decent shot into the Patton. Gives himself some time to reload, and the Patton fucked up there by not trying to get a shot in. Unfortunately, that one bounces. Now, as well as having really bad gun depression, the Wheezy also has really bad gun elevation. The gun is just so big, there's not a lot of room in the turret for it to move up and down. The breach is a thing that exists, remember. And occupational hazard of playing the WZ-120, as he came over that hill, he just could not depress his gun enough to hit the Patton, whereas the Patton could easily do the same to him, and finished him off. But with the gun, it's the main reason it doesn't depress is because it has a very large breach. It's a 122mm gun. Obviously, it can't depress either because the turret and the tank in general is so low. You can't clip the gun through the hull, but also the breach swings up and hits the roof of the turret, and when you go to elevate the gun, the breach swings down and hits the floor. And you need room for all your elevation gear and stabilizing gear and, all that good stuff. So there's only a certain arc of movement that the gun is capable of inside the turret. That's why the gun can't elevate to 80 degrees like on the T-80, the light tank, Tier 4 light tank. So the larger your gun, the less likely you are to have good elevation, and to some extent depression, although depression is more dependent on the height of your turret and the height of your tank. So tanks with nice tall turrets tend to get better depression than the soup pan turrets of Soviet and Chinese tanks. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. A good example of just what the WZ-120 is capable of, and a good show of how it plays, as well as some of the difficulties you encounter. A lot of my replays, I don't want to go out and kind of sign my own death warrant here, but I think I've got enough of a handle on the tank where I usually don't run into problems with terrain, at least not badly enough to get me killed very often. So usually I don't think the tank's weaknesses come through as much as they really ought to, for a good demonstration of what it's capable of. And I think this was a good show of just what it is, as well as that most of my really good Wheezy games tend to happen on flat maps. What a mystery. But here we have, a bit of everything. We have it doing huge amounts of damage, we have it getting killed because it can't depress its gun, and we have it missing easy shots because it wasn't fully aimed in yet. Anyway, I'm going to wrap this one up here. So as ever, I wish you the best of luck in the field, and I will see you on the next one, which will be a World of Warships video. So actually I will just put a quick note in before I do cut this, which is that the World of Warships replay system actually kicks you out of the game the second the replay is over. And as you can probably tell, I tend to talk a bit after the replay is done. That doesn't work in World of Warships. I found out the hard way. So you'll have to forgive a couple of the recordings. I get cut off almost mid-sentence. There's nothing I can really do about it. I suppose I could just clip on, go back in game, just record sitting around in the port talking and clip that onto the end of the video, but that's more effort than it's worth, and by the time I get around to doing that, I've lost my train of thought anyway, so fuck it, I won't bother, and you guys will just have to kind of grin and bear it until the replay system is a bit more fleshed out. But anyway, that'll be what's coming next, a bit of World of Warships, and then I'm not sure what actually. I haven't played tanks for probably about 2 weeks now, so we'll see how we go. Maybe more tanks, maybe more boats, maybe a bit of GTA 5, if I can record that without my PC exploding, I don't know. Anyway, I'm going to cut this one for real now, so once again, thanks for watching, see you next time.